Have you ever been in a relationship where you guys have been together for a long time and maybe you guys got a little bit comfortable, and then one day your partner comes up to you and says, I don't feel the same way anymore. I don't think we should continue this. And you go through the negative thoughts of like, man, I really fucked this up. Well, recently I went through this and I went through the process of trying to save my relationship. And so today I want to share some of the lessons I learned. And hopefully by sharing these lessons with you, maybe you can relate to my story, or maybe you're in a relationship right now that isn't doing too well, and maybe you actually have the chance to save it before it's too late. Stay tuned. So the truth is, it really sucks going through a breakup period. It even sucks a lot more when we're in the middle of a pandemic where you don't have your health, your other friendships. It's also really hard when you are a small business owner and you are being forced to move out of California during a pandemic. And so I wanted to share kind of like my lessons that I learned through my most recent breakup. And if you've ever been through a breakup, it's not easy. Believe it or not, I forgot how tough breakups were because it's been so long since I was in a relationship as well. I honestly felt like I was 22-year-old Kevin in 32-year-old Kevin's body as well. The truth is, sometimes with love, everyone ends up scarred and whatnot. I was actually watching this TED Talk by Helen Fisher, and she was talking about a study where a group of people were asked, A, have you ever had your heart broken? Or B, have you ever broken someone's heart? 90% of the people said yes to both questions as well. So the truth is, at some point, all of us will go through some sort of heartbreak at some point of our life as well. Looking back with this relationship that I try to save, there were a lot of lessons that I learned, and I wish I could have changed some things a lot sooner, because if I did, maybe perhaps I could have saved the relationship. And I was debating whether I should really talk about this on my channel, but I thought about you guys, and I thought like maybe if I can share some of these lessons that I've learned or some of the experiences that I've been going through, it can help you save your current future relationships as well. And it might be able to help some other people. But if you're going through a breakup like me, hey, guess what? You're not alone. And I just want to share my misery with all y'all as well. Just kidding. So if you're new here, you don't know me, my name is Kevin. I'm actually a former pharmacist YouTuber and digital entrepreneur. And back in November 2020, in the midst of a pandemic, my partner at the time messaged me this question of, can we talk? And as a guy in my 30s, I realized whenever a female asks you or your partner asks you, can we talk? That's usually a really bad sign that some bad news is going to be dropping soon. At the time, I was actually in Boston. My mom had a brain tumor, and I flew back to Boston to help her as well. At the same time, I just lost my client and stuff. So I was going through like a lot of tough times. And I remember sitting there, and I was like, when my partner told me, can we talk? I was like, oh my God, what else can go wrong, right? That's literally how I felt. So I said, sure, let's talk. We talked through Zoom because I was through Boston, and the truth was she wanted to break up with me. All of a sudden, I just felt like this feeling like just got real. And I just had this deep sinking feeling in my gut. I know I wasn't the best boyfriend. I know I wasn't like super committed and locked down the relationship and all that because I was so focused on my business. But at the end of the day, I still really cared about her and I wanted to save the relationship. So I asked her, hey, are you willing to fix things and talk things out when I come back to California? She said yes. And from that time, I knew the time was ticking from that moment. I really had to figure out what the hell I wanted in both my life and my relationship life as well. So during that time, I doubled down on my therapy. I start reading books like on how to make relationships work and stuff, and just planning my 5-year future of what I really want in life as well. What are some of the things I want? Because when you turn 30, that's when you see all your friends popping out kids and all that sort of stuff. It makes you really wonder, what the hell am I doing with my life, right? So I start doing that work. I start talking to a lot of my friends who are a little bit more experienced as well. I even talked to my neurohacking coach as well and start trying to work on the deeper work that I've been ignoring for most of my life. The truth is, I have never been really good with coping with loss. I was never really good at having healthy relationships as well. And I think a part of it was just growing up in an Asian family and just seeing my family fight all the time. And so I don't, like, for me, it was really important not to repeat that same process that, I saw before me as well. Fast forward to February 2021, I'm boarding back on my plane back to California, and I'm feeling so nervous. I've done a lot of crazy stuff in my life. I've done things like pierce my penis. I've done things like spoke it in front of thousands of people. But this was one of the things that really, really made me nervous because I didn't know what the outcome of my relationship and my future was. And I just felt so nauseated just thinking about the actual outcome. I remember getting off the flight and stepping out of the airplane. I'm like, normally, I would be so happy being in California. I remember when I first landed in 2013, 2014, I was so happy to be here. But I had this dread in my stomach, man, I'm going to have a very difficult conversation with my former partner as well. And at first it felt really weird because my ex would always kind of pick me up from the airport. Instead, I just Ubered home, and it felt really weird. I came back home. I started cleaning up stuff. And then after I got settled down, I was like, man, I really don't want to text her, but I have to put on my big boy pants and face the inevitable. And so I texted my ex and I was like, hey, when are you free? And we set up a time to meet in person. We met up. She was hungry. We grabbed lunch. And she was like, is something wrong? You seem kind of stressed. And the reason, I think the thing was for me, I was just so nervous about the outcome in terms of what was going to happen to us. And that's why I had this look of despair or something was wrong too. And so after we had lunch, we sat in my apartment, and the worst nightmare actually came true for me. She didn't want to try anymore. She wanted to focus on herself, and I couldn't blame her. My ex at the time, she put in so much work, and looking back, I was just so ungrateful. I didn't put any effort. And I knew at the time I prioritized my business, but I didn't think for once, how can my business augment my relationship life as well? Why didn't I put in the effort? And I felt so much guilt. I felt like I was a really shitty partner because I didn't prioritize her at all, ever. And it just was not fair because we kind of ran that relationship for the last 5 years. And for once in my relationship life, it wasn't my partner that didn't put in 100%. This time, it was me. And I was actually very disappointed in myself when I first came to that realization. So after our conversation, I was just so devastated. It sometimes feels like you just get so paralyzed where you just don't want to do anything. You're just frozen. And I even wrote an IG post about it as well. And I'll read it to you. Real talk, I haven't felt okay in a long time. 6 months ago, I was sitting at my dad's grave while my mom was in surgery for a brain tumor. And I asked for a sign and a bit of help from the universe, God, or higher being to guide me in the right direction of my life. No lie, I haven't felt this loss since I was a teen. Since then, I went through the financial roller coaster of thyroid issues, insomnia, housing surprises, and most recently, the loss of my relationship. In terms of my relationships, there's a lot for me to work on. I made lots of mistakes, and one of them is not going to therapy sooner to resolve my issues sooner. While there's wins in between, I struggled to stay positive sometimes. For example, I hit my most profitable week this week and highest profitable week this week, but I still feel like, what is the point if I have no one to share it with? I know it's a little dramatic, but that's how I feel. Sometimes it's so hard to continue with life, and I ask myself, what's the point when I feel so much suffering every single day? But even though during those moments, there's that voice of reason that comes through, even when everything inside feels like it's falling apart. Even when I don't believe in myself, it tells me, keep going. You're meant for more. All you need to do is show up. It's that same voice that tells me to continue to invest myself with my therapist, business coach, or show up in jiu-jitsu or my business, even when things are falling apart at home. To be honest, I never thought my entrepreneurship life would be this hard. What people don't see is the cost of success. Maybe I was just naive. I just pray that this is God's plan to build me into the man I was supposed to be. There's a saying that sticks with me. Mike from Jersey Shore mentioned, God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. And it reminds me, I'm just really grateful that I still have a choice every day. Every day I have the choice to show up to be a leader I was meant to be. I can choose to show up powerful, compassionate, and authentic every day. Not everyone has that opportunity. It's not easy, but this is my refugee hustle. Whew. I wrote this post and I got so many personal comments and people reaching out to me, and I just felt so blessed. And as I'm going through this breakup, there's so many emotions in me as well. And as I had time to think over the last month or so, I want to give you the 3 reasons why I felt my relationship went down the shitter. And hopefully, if you're in the relationship that's in the rocks right now, this video might help you realize what you can do and some of the red flags that I ignored as well during our relationship. So let's cover it right now. So the first thing is I prioritize my own needs over the relationship. This one was a very big thing for me. In terms of being a business owner, I always prioritize my business because I always thought, like, growing up, my family didn't grow up rich. I used to see my dad argue with my mom about finances and money. And I remember, like, whenever I wanted internet, a cell phone, or even go kung fu lessons, even when I was willing to pay for it, my dad would not let me, and we would get into so much conflict through that. And for me, I just didn't want the same shit for that I went through with my future kids. And I remember that day where I really wanted to focus on my financial life, and I felt like finances were such a huge thing, where they were such an integral of my like self-worth as a man to provide. And I think that how that bled into my relationship life more recently is I always told my former ex that business would always be over her. I didn't think about her needs. I didn't think about how my business could augment our relationships. And when I think about it, yes, I have this financial, yes, there was a cost for this financial stability as well. But I mean, I think about how loving she was toward me. All she wanted to do was support me. And often I pushed her away from me as well. Some of the best memories I have was all she wanted was to take me to Disneyland and just make me happy. And I talk about gratitude through my journal and stuff, and I look through it. I'm like, how many times did I say I was grateful for her? How many times did I say I was grateful for her for all the meals that she made me? Or when things were really busy, she would come pick me up just to make me happy. And how many times did I return the favor for her? Very rarely, pretty much never. And this was really, really tough for me to swallow. And I think as men sometimes, if you're a man watching this, we get caught up in such our own world that we forget about our partner. And we get so consumed with creating that we forget to take care of the people we love at home. And going back, I wish I had thought about how can my business augment my relationship? Because at the end of the day, we see so many business owners who are very lonely, who even commit suicide as well because they don't have fulfilling relationships in their life. And this was the first mistake I really made. I didn't really prioritize the time or care or TLC into the relationship. So there was that. Let's go over red flag number 2. I let my family and other people's other perception get in the way. To be honest, my mom really did not like my ex. A lot of my friends did not like my ex too. It's a long story short, and I don't want to paint my ex in a really bad light or anything like that, but there were some things that she did in the past, some mistakes that she made that really left a poor taste in both my family's mouth and my friends as well. My friends always felt like I could do better, things like that, but this girl really made me happy at the time. And I remember for a while, I always felt like I had to separate both my friend life, my family life from my ex's life. And I always felt like I was hiding a secret. And then when I was ready, after doing all these personal development courses and stuff like that, and I was bringing my ex to more weddings and all that sort of stuff as well, I finally reintroduced her to my mom. And my mom was not happy whatsoever. She pulled me aside and she was like, I don't want her around. I don't want her to be around. You can do so much better. My mom was trying to set me up on dates, with these Chinese friends and her friends' kids and stuff like that. I mean, I felt like it was always very disrespectful. And whenever people would bring up my ex and stuff, I felt this overwhelming pressure to just like hide everything. And I know it's not healthy. And there's something about sometimes like Chinese culture where we can't really, it's very hard to talk about our issues and resolve things. I think for me, just being in a Chinese like household, sometimes I'm very conflict avoidant, and it was really, really tough. It was so unfair to my ex because she felt, I could only imagine how she felt. It's not easy hearing that your partner's mom doesn't like you. It's not easy dealing with like feeling like discarded, and it wasn't right. And I remember after breaking up with my ex, I actually spoke to my mom, and I was like, I told a much more polite version, but I basically told my mom off. Essentially what I told my mom was that at the end of the day, this doesn't who I date, all that doesn't concern you. Yes, if you feel like I'm in danger, I'll always listen to you. But at the end of the day, I choose who I date. I choose who I want to be with, because at the end of the day, you don't have to deal with the consequences. I do. I'm the one that's going through heartbreak, not you. And my mom, I could tell in that moment, she felt so heartbroken. And she could tell that I was really pissed off and so bothered by this for the last 2 or 3 years. And it was very, very tough for me. Like, I don't think people, like, especially, it was kind of like a beta bitch move, honestly, on my part, not standing up for my partner and whatnot. And I don't think I'll ever do that again. You know, I think at the end of the day, if people don't like my partner, I don't care, because I'm the one that deals with it. I'm the one that has to live with that consequence, right? Not my mom. I hate to say it, my mom's gonna be 6 feet under when I have my kids at 1.2, right? And so that was something that I wish I resolved a lot sooner, like making sure that my family and friends to get their support. Like, I asked my mom straight up, do you trust my decisions? Great. Then trust my decision with who I date as well, right? Things like that. I know what's best for myself, right? Let's go into red flag number 3. This one is huge. We couldn't openly talk about our problems. Sometimes, I mean, in the past, I used to say, like, you know, if there's anything bothering you, just tell me. I just hope that you could just tell me in open communication. And I remember when my ex broke the news to me, I personally felt so wronged. Like, this is how I felt. And I was just like, why couldn't she just tell me this sooner? Why couldn't she just communicate this to me a lot sooner? And the truth was, it's easy to say, like, why couldn't they just communicate, right? Just throw it on them. But then I started thinking about myself, and I was like, how often did I check up on my ex and ask her, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about our relationship? How are you doing? How is your day going? Being emotionally there and creating a safe space for her. And I think that was really tough because, you know, it's easy to say I want open communication, but it's another thing of having that safe space where you can often communicate. I have to admit, I'm not the best at like receiving feedback sometimes. I can be very stubborn. I can be very like hard to work with sometimes too. And I'm often conflict avoidant myself. So this is something I've been getting really a lot better at, and I've been working on as well with my therapist. But, you know, I started thinking about that, and when she told me, and it felt like it hit me out of the blue. I remember one thing, we were sitting like right here in my apartment, and I was just like, are you like, obviously we have some sort of communication problems. Are you open to getting therapy? I'll pay for therapy, getting couples therapy, and fixing a relationship. And I remember that moment she said no, she doesn't want to do it anymore. She was just so tapped out from the relationship, how she was treated and all that. And I can't blame her. But also at that moment too, I realized this one important thing that my neurohacking coach told me as well. That he said, great relationships aren't found. Great relationships are built. And at that moment when she didn't want to do group therapy or couples therapy, that's when I kind of made up my mind, and I just realized that maybe this person that I loved a lot, maybe she was not the one. Maybe she could not take all the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. And the sad thing is like, dude, I was working toward that financial freedom, and I finally had that financial abundance for once in since my pharmacy days. She's been there through the loss of my dad. She's been there through the loss of my grandma. We've been together for the last 5 years, and it was really, really tough knowing that everything is coming to end. But that also made me realize that, you know, maybe she isn't the one. She's not my queen to build this kingdom that I have out of my mind. And so here I am like a month later after a whole breakup, and I'm still learning to cope. I'm still doing therapy. I'm taking a breakup course, just learning how to be the best man I can be, and be a leader for my future family, and really be in the place and be the person to attract like my queen. I don't want someone that can clean my room and do all this sort of shit. I want someone who is motivated, who can stick through things, who will let me do my own projects, but also like we can come together. So over a month later, I'm still doing my therapy. I'm still doing my breakup course. I'm doing I'm first time in my life I'm actually feeling out my feelings and just trying to process all this stuff. It feels like a shock sometimes. Sometimes I feel super fucking angry, and I'm just like, this like how like I felt like she wronged me so bad. And I'm learning not to like attach like these connotations of how I should feel or anything like that. I just let myself feel the way that I feel, with hopes that, it's letting me process so I can be the best man I can be, so I can attract that queen for my kingdom as well. That's how I think of things. I think of like myself as a Wakandan king, bro. And I'm just looking for my queen to just, create a kick-ass family, to do great things together. I always wanted a power couple, and maybe this person, she wasn't it. I just hope if there's a higher power out there, God, creator, whatever, universe, that this is like the next step, and that this is really building me up to be the best person I can be. It hasn't been easy, not gonna lie, but I believe like I'm truly on the right path. Anyways, if you really enjoyed this video, then chances are you're really gonna enjoy my breakup video that I shot back in November, where I found out the original news that my girlfriend at the time, or my ex at the time, she wanted to break up with me. So you can check out this video in the cards. I talk about how I was processing it at the time, and this is actually the follow-up video. This is the kind of like the prequel to this video as well, so I know that you'll enjoy it. If you guys want to see more relationship stuff too, make sure to subscribe to this channel. But anyways, thank you for watching. Stay bold, stay kick-ass. Peace, my people. Bye.